Hey guys, Sundown here. This is going to be my chapter review to My Hero Academia 193. Traces. My throat has been like disgusting today. It feels really itchy, so I'm coughing up every few seconds. So I'll try and get this review done without coughing up too much, but it's just crazy. But so this chapter of My Hero Academia I really enjoyed. We got to see more behind the power of One for All. I'm going to review this the same way I kind of reviewed the last chapter of My Hero Academia, which was just go through, we just go through the chapter, kind of page by page, without really much of a script, without any script really. So we first see Deku, and he's realized that he's not got anything below his nose. He's only got a bit of his right hand, and he can't move from the spot. He doesn't have his legs, and there's two people out of the kind of 8 people lined up, the 7 people lined up, excluding himself. 2 people right next to All Might who he can't make out, and they're silhouettes, but they were previous users of One for All. And I really want to know who they are, because we see all the other guys. We see Deku just goes through this kind of, he's talking about how One for All works and stuff like that, but we see each person. We see, I think her name is Nana, which was All Might's master. We see this Hellboy looking dude. We see this other black haired, shorter looking dude. Then we see this other blonde haired dude with like his hair coming up to here in like a bob. He looks awesome. I think he really looks sick. And then we see the 2 silhouettes at the end, and I'm not sure who they are, but they must be important because they've been silhouetted out. So really this chapter is a direct conversation between All for One and and the original user of One for All, the first one. So All for One's really he's really just trying to talk to his brother and trying to convince him, trying to manipulate him by weeding his words into his head and saying that, he was trying to make the original user of One for All feel like there was something wrong with how he viewed righteousness. But the first user seemed to be like really mentally strong and realized that superpowers shouldn't be used to fulfill your own selfish desires and stuff like that, which is all for One was doing. But All for One is like, I could say the exact same thing of you, even though his brother doesn't really have any superpowers at this point, so he couldn't use his superpowers for anything else. But All for One says that he shows his brother what he can do with his powers. He's like, he takes a guy with a quirk that kind of enhances his jaw and it transforms him, and he takes this other guy who doesn't have a quirk, and they're both in different situations. The guy with the jaw transformation quirk, he's been kind of ostracized by his community, by his parents, and he's a really shy guy, so it's really not working well for his psyche and for his mental state. And then you see this bald guy who he eventually gives the quirk to, or gives a quirk to, who wants to use a quirk to to defend himself, because he just got like beat up by like a group of people with quirks. So it's one of those things where All for One, you can kind of see kind of the logic behind why he would do what he's doing and how people would view him as kind of like this heroic figure. But the catch is, when he does this for the 2 guys, he says to them, from now on, if I'm ever in trouble, you'll help me out. So essentially it's, I've done oh bro, so it's I've done this for you, now I hope you'll come back and do something for me when I need you to. Now this is what the original user of One for All understands so much. He's like, you're not doing this to free the people, you're not doing this to help the people, you're doing this for your own ends. They're going to have to come back and help you at one point, and when they need to help you, you're going to make them do something crazy. So and All for One's not exactly denying this. He's like, yeah, I need people to owe me a debt, so that when I need them, they can come through for me. But I'm also granting them happiness. So he's like, he's essentially saying he has power to like restore this kind of balance within humanity. Because when the quirks first came in, people were going apeshit by the looks of things, and he's here to kind of restore that balance. Take quirks from people and give quirks to people who he sees as fit. But he's only going to give quirks to people who he knows are going to pay him back, and who probably have that strain of evil in them anyway. So we then see One for All get brought down by this by the Guardian, or some sort of bodyguard for All for One, even though he doesn't really need one. And this dude looks pretty cool. He's wearing like it might even be a she, to be fair. He's wearing like, his hair's kind of pulled back. He's got this face mask. Looks like a bit like Soldier 76 from Overwatch. and he's got these kind of like bars attached to his belt. I'm not sure if they're like nunchucks or something like that. And yeah, so all that really happens is that the original user of One for All is brought down, and All for One is then kind of imprisons him, saying that like I'm not gonna kill you because you're my only younger brother, so we're family, and I'm not gonna do you like that. So then we see, bruh, this is a struggle. So then we see kind of All for One walking through like a normal day in what was humanity back then, and he sees like people with quirks attacking quirkless people, and then all he does is he steals the quirks from the people with quirks, and then suddenly the people without quirks realize that they can kick the shit out of him. So he's kind of restoring the balance, but he's also promoting kind of further conflict, and he's not really solving anything. He's just putting everyone on equal footing again. So he's not actually solving anything, which is a big problem with All for One. And his only catch is that if he helps you, you gotta come and help him. You gotta follow him. So it turns out eventually he's made like quite a sizable faction of people who he's helped and who in turn are going to help him. And so we then see Deku's watching all this, by the way, and so we get to this point where All for One opens this vault, and that's his younger brother One for All is in there, and he hasn't eaten in a while, so he's gotten really thin, really frail, and it's the same kind of thing. One for All is just there like, I'm not going to be manipulated by you, and All for One is just there telling him of his accomplishments. He's like, I've united group after group of people with quirks, people without quirks. I've got a huge faction now. I even destroyed this group who kind of disagreed to join with me. They kind of rejected me. They were killed off. And then what really makes him happy, though, is the fact that he didn't give the order to have them killed. They were just killed by his faction, his group of people who kind of exercised the order before the order was even given. So he's happy that they can kind of guess what type of world he's wanting to build. But it's also showing you how crazy the people in his faction are, and how crazy he is. The fact that he's happy that there are murderers within his group, and these murderers went out, did their thing, and he's just like, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. And he's like, it's the stuff of dreams. So you can see how crazy really All for One is. He's good with words. He can manipulate people that way. But if you just look at what he's saying and kind of understand where he's trying to take it, he's a crazy. He's a big time crazy. So he compares the world to like a comic book that his younger brother and himself read years ago, where like the hero was getting like demolished by the Demon King or something like that. But like One for All is kind of like the manga reader, when like, you know, when you're the manga reader, you're far ahead of the anime onlys, and he's just like, you only read up to volume 3, but I know what happened. And he's like, the hero won in the end, and he kind of tells his brother that villains always are destined to lose in the end. The villain will never stay alive, will never outlast the heroes, because the heroes will always rise up again, and the villains will always be there will always be internal discord, internal conflict. So a villain's life is kind of different to how a hero's life cycle is, and even if heroes die out, they will always rise up again. So his brother's just there like, bruh, I'll show you. So All for One, this is the point where we kind of can guess, and it's kind of shown as well, is where All for One grants his younger brother with the quirk One for All. So this is the first time it happens, and this is where the accumulation of power and everything like that starts to occur. So he gives One for All the quirk, and then this is where things take a turn. This is where I was like, yo, this is not what I was expecting. So Deku's there shitting it, watching All for One giving a quirk to One for All, and he's just there with his hand extended like, bruh, I'm trying to do something, and he knows he can't. And he reminisces as to when All Might told him that in these dreams that he'll have of the traces of the memories of the previous users, he can't interact with any of the previous users, and they can't interact with him. And but this is where it gets funky. The original user of One for All addresses Deku and says, so you're the 9th. And I was like, oh, he knows Deku's there, and like Deku's shitting himself. He's like, oh my god, he's talking to me. And the original user of One for All is like, I wanted to show you a little bit more of my past, a little bit more of what One for All is, but you can only manage 20% right now. So we assume that Deku now, every time he reaches a new height, a new kind of percentile, possibly like 30%, 40%, he'll be getting these kind of like TED Talks from friggin' the original user of One For All. But One For All also says something. The original One For All user says something like, "We've long since passed the point of singularity here," which it makes me wonder: is is he trying to say that like all the previous users of One For All are kind of within Deku in terms of memories, and they're going to be teaching him how to use it or stuff like that? They're going to become one literally for all. I'm not too sure, because just that phrasing is a little bit weird. I want to know what it was like word by word, but we've long since passed the point of singularity just seems like such a weird phrase, and it could be a very big thing. So he touches Deku's hand, and the dream ends there when he says, you're not alone." Then an explosion goes off. What's his name? Aoyama wakes up and he goes to Deku's room to see that Deku has like torn a huge hole in his bed, and he's got like markings on his hands, on his right arm specifically, which is where the original user of One For All touched him. But most importantly, the scars on his right hand have vanished. So I'm not sure where this is going to go. This is dope, and I'm hoping like we find out more about this as we go along. Hopefully through like talking with All Might or something like that. So yeah, my voice is dying. Let me know what you guys thought of this chapter. Let me know what you guys thought of this review. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in a bit.